Well, I would like to talk to you today about a recent finished qualitative study we did with autism guide dogs and young children in families. And those are the questions that I will talk about you. I want to tell you something about autism, something about the question, why, for God's sake, do autistic children need a guide dog? And I want to talk about the results with you. Well, autism is a neurobiological disorder that interferes with the normal development of children, and it has a huge influence of everyday's life. The children, they manifest limited verbal skills. They don't talk that much. They don't talk to their peers. They are, most of the time, they are very isolated and not interfering with their environment. They, many times, they are having, I'm sorry, I have a, to be short, they do have a lot of problems in normal life, have a deficit in imagination, they just don't have fantasy, and they don't understand when you make jokes. Everything should be very straight what you say to them, and they cannot place themselves in the perspective of another person, which means that they have problems with empathy. Also, they have problems. They have often tantrums, and they are really difficult to be with sometimes, and especially when the stimuli in their environment gets too strong for them. So if you consider the meaning for a child to be autistic, then it means that they do have problems. They can be isolated from their peers. They have problems sometimes in playing with their brothers or sisters. They can feel lonely and depressed, and often they are bullied by the rest of the children, for instance, in the environment they live. This is a quote of Johnson and Myers in their article. It's harder for them to develop appropriate relationships with others, and this is something autism dogs can help them with. What does it mean for the family? Because that's the thing what I want to talk about today with you. It means really a lot of stress. It means really a lot of strain to have a child which is unpredictable, is impulsive, and sometimes has very irritable behavior. I don't know if you know autistic children. I have seen a lot of them, and it's really hard to cope with a child that is putting water in a bowl, putting water out the bowl, putting water in the bowl, and that's continuous the whole day long. The children are very difficult to take with you to go for shopping, because those are too much stimuli. So when you are outside with the child, it's not fun. So the families do have limited mobility. They do not the normal things like shopping or going to a zoo or going to a playing ground, and even groceries is a problem for the mothers to go out. So also, it's very hard for them that people are approaching them in a very hostile way and say, why don't you educate your child better, because it's behaving in a different way. And there's really not enough professionals or educational workers that can deal with the problems. They really feel, the family really feels isolated in that way. You can imagine that gives higher stress levels, and it also makes that they don't, it affects their career as well. It means for those parents that they lost the expectancy. They have problems with how they should deal with the problems of their child, and will their child be happy later? Can it take care for itself? So they have to go through a period that they learn to cope with it. the family patterns are changing completely. People aren't going out, are just visited by very few people. They live much more isolated than they wished, and the parents can't allow themselves to have huge careers with working day and night, because that would affect the family life much more, and it wouldn't be reasonable to do so. The social life is often poor, and it inflicts also their marital relationship. I have met many families, and often there were problems between the father and the mother, blaming each other. Well, it's in your family, and it is your father is acting the same way, and well, it has been sometimes, it seems to be a very difficult issue to deal with. And of course the financial, because having a child with an autism spectrum disorder, it's costly. You have to go to special schools to have special training, and not everybody can afford that. Well, there I quoted how the family could be at risk. There can be depression. Not every mother is depressed, but there is a higher chance of getting depressed, and there is often a lack of mutual support of the partners, which really shows is very often the case. And the environment is a very important thing that people don't understand why that child behaves so bad. So the other side of that coin is that there are very few relaxing activities. People are inside the home and don't go out, don't have any opportunities to set their mind off and just have fun. Well, why companion dogs? Well, first for the children, I want to explain that it has, of course, for every child a positive influence, but when a child is within a companion dog, there's less stress. The companion dog provides social support, safety, feeling of well-being, and they activate important behavior improvements in children with an autistic spectrum disorder. That has already been proved by Chandler in her book, which she wrote about animal-assisted interventions for children. But what is added to it is that the children, the autistic children that are really very, shall I say, they are very unpredictable in their behavior. When they want to jump over the street or to jump into the water, what happens all the time, the dog on who they are attached keep them away from the water, keep them away from the street. The mother just has to say stop or give an order to the dog, and the dog keeps with the leash that the child bears. The child is stopped by the dog, and this gives also a learning moment for the child. And after a while, is our experience that after half a year, the child need not be attached anymore to the dog. Well, they provide social support, the dogs. They distract from stress. You can imagine that it's fun to have a dog in the house, that they do funny things which makes children laugh, which make parents laugh. They are social facilitators, children that have never been addressed at the street. Never a little peer came to them and made contact with them, will go to the dog, oh, you have a lovely dog, and they make friends. They provide safety when they can go out, they can even go to shops, and they enhance, which is very important, the mobility of the family. They can make trips, they can go out all together, walking in the woods, going to a farm, or going to something nice. And on the other hand, there is a necessity for a very structured life with the dog, and that means also that in the training of the animal handler who is training the dog and the family to have that dog, consequent behavior, which is very helpful most of the time in those families. What we did was a qualitative research, and we analyzed before, the medical and psychological records. All those children were completely different. That was really, most of them had more problems than just the autistic disorder. We had interviews with the parents, and the mothers, mostly the mothers, kept diaries, and we analyzed it by a computer program. Well, we had 25 children with autism. They were young, very young, from 4 to 8 years. And you can imagine, after, when a child is 8 years old, they are too big to be attached to a dog. And just understand me well, the dogs are not attached all day to the child. It's only for going out, only for walking, only for going to a shop, to the doctor, to the hospital, to whatever, in the house. And when the child was during the day at daycare, of course the dogs were just normal house dogs. It were all Labradors, and they were special trained. They had a program of 1.5 years to be a guide dog, and they were guide dogs educated for the blind people, but who had a lack of some quality that made them not usable for the blind people. Well, the themes, I show them to you: the social behavior, the functioning, emotional, cognitive, and what was the meaning for the dog and for the dog and the child. Yes, I go through it. Oops. And there, the results for the behavioral changes in the child. I'll summarize them very quickly. The mobility, less behavior problems, new social behavior they learned. They learned even some empathetic behavior. We have several proofs of that, and they were making really improvement in self-care and got more connections. Some examples. Mobility. First you see that the little boy sitting in a chair, and then afterwards he was dragging the dog very proudly. He could walk himself. Shopping, which means a lot of stimuli. New skills, going to a counter and just give the money to the lady to pay for the shopping, and working with mama in the woods and in parks. The cognitive improvements were very obvious, and the school achievements were really going better. And in my opinion, that has to do with the relaxation of the children. In having a dog, the children became much more relaxed. Emotional, they had a better mood. They didn't have very much tantrums anymore. And really the empathy, and that started with the dog in just reacting on, for instance, the sickness of the animal. That was very striking to a mother who said, well, he never showed any sign of an ability to feel something, what another is suffering from, and that was the very first time for that child. Well, they can travel. They have the possibility to go with a plane. They feel they have new friends, and for the family, it meant that there were much more social contacts. The people, the parents had to go out, had to walk with the dog, and they met a lot of people because they were obliged to walk themselves, not with the child, but with the dog, because the dog needs exercise. So they had exercise too. They had a chance to empty their mind and to make new friends, which happened. So the family felt much more felt better, and they had fun, and they were really, the relationships were changing between the parents and between their environments, their friends, etc. It went more smoothly. There was more understanding by the child, which was accompanied with the dog, which had a harness on which it said that it was a guide dog, and the mothers quoted, well, we feel like a normal family again. We can go out, we can do everything. Other people can do too. So there was more distraction, more pleasure, more mutual support, more support from the environment, and much more family activities. Of course, there are issues. That mean that not every child likes to have a dog around, and some of the children sorted out. There were 3 children that didn't match with any dog, and they, for instance, they couldn't support the smell, or they couldn't support any touch of the dog or any licking of the dog, and that didn't go well, and that was stopped. The others, on the other hand, you need to be very careful and watch the autism dog well-being, because I think that is underestimated, that issue, that guide dogs and helping dogs, of assistance dogs, are sometimes under stress and it's not noticed. And then thank you for listening, and many thanks to the organization, which is of the education of the guide dogs in our country, who made this study possible. I want to add that we are now going to look into the family relationships and go, we started already with a quantitative study, because we saw that the family relationships and the stress in the family decreased significantly, and so we are going to do that, and I hope to present that in the next time. Thank you.